Good morning and welcome. It is Sunday, April 19th, 2026, and this is Sunday Fun Day from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Thank you all so much for being here. Hello to Therapist You Know and Shishi Wolf, Marielle 36, Nana of 4, She Bear TC, Jonna Moore, Nate Dog, Sneemac, and Potter. So many people in the house. Thank you all so much for showing up every single Sunday. We appreciate you. We appreciate you sending in the questions. Court Dog Daniel says, let's go. My favorite day of the week. Me too. Dom's mom is here, a brand new member. Welcome to Dom's mom. Chicago Marie. Hello, beautiful people. Hello to all of you beautiful people. If you're coming back, if this is your return to Sunday Fun Day, welcome back. It's going to be a good one. We've got a lot of great questions. If this is your first time, Maureen is here. Happy Sunday Fun Day, everybody. If this is your first time with Sunday Fun Day, welcome. I think you're going to enjoy it. But let me introduce myself first. My name is Joshua Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office. I was there for about 10 years before I left to go into private practice as a criminal defense attorney. And this is Courtroom Confidential. We started this channel with the idea of presenting to you both sides of the courtroom, both sides of the issues, both sides of the stories. That was our mission statement, our goal, and we hope that we do that. And then we started this show every Sunday, Sunday Fun Day, where we take your questions that you've left us voicemails about, and we answer them live. It's a lot of fun. It's always unpredictable, and we have thoroughly enjoy it. So stay to the end. As always, we do have some announcements. There's some fun stuff we're working on. I don't know if I can entirely announce it just yet, but I want to at least tease you all with it. So stay tuned for all of that. But for right now, it's Sunday. You know what time it is. Take that deep cleansing breath. You've made it. It's the end of the week, a beginning of a new week, depending on how you look at it. We're going to have some fun this morning. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Share this with anybody that you think might enjoy it. Subscribe. Do you know it's free to subscribe and the government won't even know about it? So go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Sneemac kicking us off this morning. Thank you so much, Sneemac, for gifting the memberships. Always highly, highly appreciated. June Sidlauskas. See how that just rolls off my tongue now? Thank you for gifting the memberships. Appreciate you as well. Very kind and very generous of you. You guys came through. Lots of great questions. As always, this is kind of my disclaimer. I try my best to get to all of them. If I missed you this week, don't get downtrodden. Don't get depressed. Don't get upset. Don't take it personally. Please just come back and send us another message for next week. Jules 4911 is 75% juiced. Is that a passing grade, 75%? That's like a C+. Dom's mom, 70%. We got to get everybody more juice than that. We got to get things going this morning. L. Kennedy says it's my favorite place to be on Sunday. Well, we love having you, L. Kennedy. All right. Hush up, Ritter. Get into it. All right. Where is our first call taking us today?
Hi, Joshua and Courtroom Confidential crew. My name is Jesse, and I'm a first-time caller. I have a question about confidentiality. I'm calling from the land of love, Loveland, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cincinnati. My question today is about confidentiality. We discussed this several weeks ago regarding Nick Reiner, and when Alan Jackson left the case, we learned that confidentiality with a lawyer and client supersedes even death. My question is, when this pertains to other client relationships, what happens if someone, for instance, is subpoenaed to testify? What happens with a therapist-client relationship? Or what happens with a pastor-client relationship? Do these relationships still receive the same protections as a lawyer-client confidentiality does? Or does a subpoena supersede in those cases? I have been dying to know ever since we mentioned it with Nick Reiner. Thanks.
Jesse from Loveland, Ohio. Let's put you on the map. Great question. Great question to kick us off. You've been dying to know, and now I'm dying to tell you. Good grief. Are those all the dots from callers? Wow. Incredible. That's amazing. Really. It looks like the U.S. has chickenpox. Well done, everybody. Great question, Jesse, kicking us off this morning. Talking about attorney-client confidentiality, we actually refer to it as privilege, attorney-client privilege communications, doctor-patient, therapist-client, pastor-parishioner. There's a lot of these married couples, by the way. There's a marital privilege. But you're right. It does have to do with confidential communications between you and another person. And all of these exist because we feel as a society that there's a public policy reason behind encouraging the free flow of information between certain folks who have a relationship with each other. So between your attorney and the client, we want them to be able to speak freely with each other and not worry about, as a client, not worry about that you tell your attorney something and he's going to have to give that up someday. Same thing with your doctor. You should be able to freely communicate with your doctor and your therapist and your pastor and your married spouse, that you should be able to freely communicate with these people and not feel like it's going to come back to haunt you someday. We want to encourage that. So we have created this privilege, and they are very, very strong, especially the attorney-client privilege, all the other privileges as well. I mean, to get your own medical information, you have to get a HIPAA waiver from that doctor before they'll turn over even your medical information to your own lawyer. I have to deal with this all the time when I'm trying to get medical information on clients. I need to get a HIPAA waiver, send it over to the doctors, because they say that's all fine and good, and I'm so happy that you're retained, Mr. Ritter, but I'm not handing you page number 1 until you get some sort of waiver, because we have this privilege, this confidentiality that exists between us and our patients. And as far as subpoenas go, you can subpoena whoever you like. The subpoena is not the problem. The testimony is the problem. So if you bring in someone who shares a privilege, you can bring in that patient and they can go on and you can ask them to testify. But the second that you ask them to start to testify about their medical information, or you bring in a doctor and you ask them to testify about their patient's medical information, or you try to bring in a lawyer to have them testify about something they said, the conversation they had with their client, or you put the defendant on the stand and you ask the defendant to testify to something, a communication between them and their lawyer. All of that's going to be a hard stop and a no, unless there's some sort of exception or waiver. So let's talk about what those exceptions might be. One, it's called the crime fraud exception. And you can think about this as legal advice used to cover up a crime. So lawyers are not allowed to advise a client on how to cover up a crime that they've already committed, right? So, hey, now you might be thinking to yourself, well, isn't that what criminal defense attorneys do? Not really. If you're saying, I'm defending you from crimes that you're charged with, that's very different than, oh, and by the way, I've also committed, in addition to the murder of my wife, I've committed tax fraud. So I would like you to help me cover that up. What should I file now? What fraudulent documents should I file? Who's a good person to launder this money? Stuff like that. Cannot do. And those communications would not be arguably privileged and confidential. Or future crimes. A lawyer cannot advise you on how to commit future crimes. This was an interesting situation that I would oftentimes run into, where in California and other states, something like marijuana is legal on the state level, but still not legal on the federal level. So what do you do with that? Somebody comes into you and they say, listen, I'm getting all the licenses together. I want to do a big marijuana grow. I've got a warehouse and I want to start growing marijuana so that I can sell it. And I need you to advise me and walk me through the legal process so that I don't run afoul of any statutes, municipal codes, state laws when it comes to doing this. And sometimes these people would bring in bucket loads of money because they've got a lot of it. And they'd say, I pay you anything, just help me out with this. And we would have to turn those folks away. Now, I know some attorneys don't, but we and I'd say myself and the other attorneys I was working with, would turn these people away because we would go, listen, we cannot advise you on how to commit a crime federally, because what you are doing is falling within this gray area of federal law. So we cannot advise you on that. And then there's other kind of more straightforward things. Hey, I want to, commit tax fraud, or hey, I want to go kill my husband. Can you advise me on that? Can't do that. Won't be protected. And then you deal with things like waivers. You can, of course, waive your attorney-client privilege and freely talk about things that you've discussed with your lawyer. You can also enter into joint defense agreements where you are allowing the information that you share with your lawyer to be shared with another lawyer for your co-defendant, things like that. You can waive things for your defense team, which might include your family members. All of these things kind of need to be worked out. And then there's other exceptions. What if you have a fee dispute with your attorney? That might create situations where your attorney might have to discuss some things that might fall under privilege to clear up that fee dispute, or a probate dispute. What if you're dealing with the execution of a will, and some of that might have to do with conversations that the dead person, you're right, the attorney-client privilege survives death, but what if that person had communications with their attorney and those become important to resolving probate issues? All of this needs to be obviously litigated out. It's not done so freely. But to answer your wonderful question, Jesse, for kicking us off this morning from Loveland, Ohio, it is a very strong privilege. There are very few things that pierce it, and a subpoena is certainly not going to be one of those that's going to stop, that is going to undo those types of protections. Thank you so much, Jesse. Wonderful question. Let's keep it rolling here. Who's next?
Hi, Josh. My name is Dee, and I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I have 2 questions, please. Number 1, it appears that a lot of defence attorneys are former prosecutors. What was the impetus for you to change, and do you think that is common with other former prosecutors? And number 2, Michael Brown, Rex Heuermann's defence attorney, said in his press conference that he zealously defended his client. How challenging is it to defend someone you know is guilty? Do you ever feel emotionally conflicted? Thanks for the opportunity to ask my questions. Love your show. Thanks to you, Tiff and Caitlin, for all your hard work.
Well, thank you, Dee, for the kind words and calling in from Melbourne, Australia, putting Melbourne on the map. It's so funny. These 2 questions are probably the questions I get most often, and I get them every, 2 or 3 weeks. Somebody asks something very similar, and I understand it. It's probably, if you're, never don't have a person in your life who's a criminal defense attorney, would probably be my 2 biggest questions as well. One, it does seem like a lot of defense attorneys are former prosecutors. A lot of defense attorneys, private defense attorneys, are also former public defenders. But it does seem like the flow of private attorneys, if they don't just start off that way, they are prosecutors first. Even some of the folks that you follow on YouTube are people who are either defense attorneys that were prosecutors first, or maybe they started off their career just entirely as a defense attorney. I think it's less about, at least for me, it certainly wasn't about, I'm tired of being a prosecutor and now I want to defend people who've been accused of crimes. It was much more about, I'm tired of working for the government and now I want to work for myself. And I think that's true for most prosecutors. There is, unfortunately, no such thing as a private prosecutor. I know that there are rare occasions where a private attorney might be hired specifically to prosecute a case, but it is incredibly rare and you can't make a living off of it. So myself, many prosecutors find themselves just looking for, career advancement, new challenges, a way to kind of build your own business. When you're working for the government, you're working for the government, and you're kind of small cog in a very large machine, and that begins to be a little tiresome. Some folks love it. I have friends, very good friends, who are still in the DA's office, and they're never going to leave. They love it. They love the comfort of kind of knowing where they're going to show up every single day. There's certainly no concern about when am I going to get that next paycheck? When is my next client going to walk through the door? There's always work for them. And that's a very fulfilling life. And I don't in any way, by what I'm saying right now, mean to disparage that. But for me, I was just looking for something new, some new challenge. And I would have loved to continue to be a prosecutor, but I couldn't get those new challenges. And I'm not going to be beat around the bush. Money was part of it as well. I'm building, growing a young family, and I wanted to be able to provide for them. So I made that choice to leave and go into private practice. And the best way to do that was to go into criminal defense. And the other question that I get all the time is, how do you sleep at night, Ritter? How challenging is it to defend someone that you know is guilty? How do I answer this best? First of all, this should not be a shocker. Most people that hire you are guilty of something. The amount of times that somebody who has walked through my door and say, I need a lawyer, I've been accused of a crime, and I am flat out innocent. And after discussing that with them, most people may think that, but after discussing that with them, to truly find out this person, in fact, did not do what they are accused of, is very, very rare. I could count on one hand and maybe not use all my fingers where that is flat out true. Most of the time, they've been accused of something that's maybe more than what they did. If you follow what I'm saying, the charges are a little too aggressive for the conduct that this person actually committed. But most of the time, they've kind of got it right. That person is kind of guilty of what they did. And my job is to mitigate the damages, to make sure that the government doesn't steamroll them, to make sure that if they are going to pay any kind of price for this, any kind of punishment, any kind of custody time, that it's not overwhelming and is something that they can hopefully move on with the rest of their life and live a fulfilling life after they put this ugly chapter behind them. And if you think about it, folks, that's the way it should be. Okay. If we lived in a world where, as criminal defense attorneys, the majority of people who are walking through your door are innocent, that is a huge breakdown in the system. Okay. There are measures in place to prevent that from happening. You've got cops who need to make sure they're meeting certain requirements. There are prosecutors who are making sure they're not filing cases. Does it happen? For sure it happens. Like I said, I've witnessed it myself. I've sat next to a person accused of murder who did not commit that crime. And I'm not saying, well, it was self-defense, or, well, they were involved, they just drove the car, somebody else did the shooting. I'm talking about a person who did not commit the crime, and somebody's fully going after them. I handled a case where a man was accused of an assault, and he happened to have a camera running inside of his house that proved he did not do the crime. Flat out. Not, oh, it was not as bad as they say. Did not do it. Okay. So I've dealt with those situations, but they are incredibly rare. And it usually is some sort of breakdown in the system. You've got cops who did the wrong thing. You've got victims who are flat out lying. But those things should be uncovered. So the idea, and I think that sometimes we can get spun up into this idea of, oh my God, there's these people out there being falsely accused. Does it happen? Sure. Not as often as you would think. So how do I sit next to those people? Well, as a private defense attorney, I have the luxury of being able to turn away some people. If I just don't want to represent that person, I just don't feel comfortable with it, I can say, sorry, this is just not for me. Or if I do feel comfortable with it, I just realize, hey, we're going to deal with this. We're going to try to make sure that the government doesn't run all over your rights. We're going to make sure that they did everything properly. If they violated your constitutional rights somewhere along the way, we're going to highlight that and argue that. And I'm going to stand next to you and do my best to defend every single one of your rights. But I don't, if you think it's one of these things where it's all about loopholes and lying and, pulling a fast one on the jurors, not nearly as common as you might think. Certainly not the way that I practice law. I hope that answers your question. D from Melbourne, say hello to our friends down under there. Thank you so much. Legal Cat Chi-Town, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for gifting the memberships. Very appreciative. Therapist, I've heard of her. She's been a member for 10 months. Happy Crewversary, best chat ever. I will only add to that, hands down, full stop. Thank you, Therapist, All right. And Heather Cooper Smith has been a member for 4 months, everybody. Happy Crewversary, Heather Cooper Smith. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Onward.
Hi, Josh. Hi, CC crew. This is Cherry from Bedford in England, over the pond. My question is, why are our UK laws so awful compared to the US? If somebody in the US, I don't know if this is right, but somebody in the US gets LWOP'd, that's it. Life without parole, you're not coming out. If somebody commits a crime over here and gets life, they just call it a life term, 99% of those people they only get sentenced to 14 years, which means they are normally out within 7 to 8 years, which is ridiculous in our eyes. Why are we so silly? Thank you for all you do. Because of you, Tiff, the CC crew, G at Grizzly 2 Crime and Grizzly Cat, I have learned so much, and it is amazing the difference in our law system. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that was it. Thank you.
Oh, Cherry, I love that. Thank you so much. I love to hear when people feel like they're learning something. I don't know if we set out with that idea of being educational, but it's certainly turned into that. And I'm very, very honored to be the person sitting here for people to say that. So thank you, Cherry from Bedford, England. Let's put you on the map. Where is it? Where's Bedford? Zoom in on it, Kaylin. Oh, there it is. Okay. Bedford, England. The UK law is wild, says Becky B. Well, it's wild, but not maybe as wild as you think it is, and maybe not all that different from the US if you think about it. So you're right. In England, as well as here in the US, we have terms of life, and then we have terms of life without parole, LWOP. And in England, they have something called a whole life order. So how does it work? And it's very similar, actually, when you do the research. Someone is sentenced to life, and you think that means life. It doesn't mean life, but it kind of does. And here's what I mean. If they're sentenced to life, they're given a minimum term, and I'm talking about in the UK. That minimum term is also referred to as a tariff. And you're right, that could be something as low as 14 years. So we sentence you to life, but it's a minimum of 14 years. You'll hear that in the US as well. Somebody will get sentenced to murder, and it's 25 to life. Well, what does that mean? Is it life or 25? Well, it means it's life, but you got to do at least 25 years of that life. Well, then it's not really life. Well, it kind of is. Let me explain. But in England, like they do here in the US, there is also where they say, no, none of that early release stuff. Now we're giving you actual life. In England, they call it a whole life order. That means no parole. That means no early release. That means for the rest of your life. And in the US, we call it life without parole, LWOP, life without parole, no opportunity for parole. Those are seen in the most extreme cases in the US, cases where that person could potentially be looking at the death penalty. You're talking about not just murder, but aggravated murder, murder with other circumstances that make it especially heinous. So in the UK, like in the US, if you don't get life and there is some sort of minimum there, if you serve that, then you become eligible for what in the US we would call parole. And in the UK, they would call release on license. It's the same thing, though. You're going to get out, but you're not entirely free. And that's where this idea of the life comes in. When you are, because I understand the US system a little bit better, but it is similar. Let's talk about what happens with a 25 to life sentence for a murder here in the US. And that person serves their 25 years. They then become eligible for parole. Doesn't mean they're immediately released, but they're immediately eligible to go before the parole board and ask for release. And sometimes people are denied that. Many times, sometimes it happens until they die in prison and they've essentially served a life term anyways. But there are instances where that person will be paroled, but that parole is not a day or two. That parole lasts for an extended period of time to make sure that that person doesn't commit any future crimes. And if they do, this is where it becomes important. If they do, it's not just seen as a new crime. So you're out on parole, right? You've committed a crime, you did your time, you got paroled, now you're out on parole. If you commit a new crime, you kill your brand new wife, it's not just that you'll be charged with murder, it's also a parole violation. And why is that important? Because as a parole violation, they don't need to go through all the mushigas of a trial. They can just sentence you on the parole violation and put you right back in because you're still eligible for life on the crime that you committed, if that makes any kind of sense. It's a way to maintain jurisdiction over you. They are still maintaining that original sentence jurisdiction, that original sentence that you committed that crime, even though you've been released from prison, you're still on parole and therefore jurisdiction to the court. And that's why that idea of life is important. It also gives a ceiling, right? You could be denied parole for as long as they want because the cap on it, the ceiling on it is life. So there's no top tier. Sometimes you'll see somebody sentenced to a period of time, which means that they have to be released. They can't hold them beyond that period of time. That's called a determinate sentence. An indeterminate sentence means it ends with life, which could be any time. Okay, I feel like I've thoroughly beaten that horse, and I hope that made sense to everybody. All right, great question, though, for Cherry from Bedford, England. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Where am I at? Here we go.
Hello, Joshua. It's Marie from Montana. And if you've already answered this question, then feel free to throw this out. I have been listening to the Rex Heuermann, all the news about Rex Heuermann, and I've seen, articles saying that he used anywhere between 300 to 500 burner phones. And my question is, how many burner phones did he use per victim? Do they know? Because I'm wondering if he's used that many burner phones and it's been one burner phone possibly per victim, then it'd be really interesting to find out, has he committed that many murders? So thanks so much. I always love hearing your work and appreciate the opportunity to ask the question. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Marie from Montana. Let's put Montana on the map. There's a couple other folks there. Yeah, you could have a meetup, Marie. You might have to travel a little distance, but you could have a meetup. Great question. Talking about Rex Heuermann and his burner phones. And I think Marie, oh, there he is. What an ugly ogre. There he is, going to buy another burner phone. What's so incredibly sinister about this is we know that he's in there to buy another burner phone because he's likely going to commit another murder. This was actually part of the reason why they wanted to quickly arrest him, is when he started to buy another burner phone, they knew he was probably working his way up towards another murder, and they thought, we got to stop him now. We're not going to continue to surveil him any longer. We need to stop him now. But I think, Marie, you may have you may have read some information that was not clearly worded. I don't believe it was 350 burner phones. They did recover 350 plus electronic devices from his house, but that included things like, iPads, laptops, even external hard drives, computers, things like that, cell phones, burner phones, certainly, but it was not this huge cache of burner phones. But it was a huge cache of electronic devices. And that is how they found some of the most pivotal evidence in this case, is in one of those hard drives, in the recesses of it, in the unallocated data is where they found that really ominous document that's been referred to as the blueprint, which looked like his planning for these murders. But as far as the burner phones go, yes, they do believe that he used a different burner phone per murder. That kind of makes sense. He was trying to cover his tracks. You're not really covering your tracks if you're using that same number multiple times, because remember, the burner phone is really about getting a number that's not tied to you, but that number can still be tracked. They can still see what has that number done. So he would also dispose of the burner phone after committing a murder, because he's not going to use the same one for another murder. Now they can track him. The whole idea here was to cover his tracks. Because of that, they didn't recover, my understanding, a whole bunch of burner phones, because the whole point is to get rid of them. So he probably ditched a lot of them, threw them out, threw them in the river, threw them in the ocean. Who knows what he did with them. They did recover some, though, and that was some of the evidence that they had against him. But it was more about tracking the numbers and where those numbers, what cell phone towers those numbers could be attached to. It wasn't, I don't believe he was using the burner phones other than the communication to commit, I don't think there was, beyond the communications on the phone, other evidence that was all that useful to them. But if you'd like to learn more about this, Marie, I please encourage you to check out the work that we did on this Case Files episode. We put a lot of work into it, interviewed some very great, really great folks, went into detail on that issue in particular. So please check it out, Marie. The link is going to be either in the chat. There you go. On cue. Way to go, Kaylin. That's why she's the best. But thank you, Marie. Great question. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Where are we off to next?
Hello, Josh. This is June, and yes, you are saying my last name correctly, Sidloskas, from Stockton, California. I'm calling you in regards to a case in Florida versus Dwain, Dwain Hall. This is an interesting case. The defendant is a U.S. citizen. The victim is from the UK area. Interpol is involved because when the family found out that she was missing from the UK, they found out that she flew over here to the United States. Right now, the trial in the U.S. is in the Florida area. The question that I have is, once the trial in Florida is over, could he be sent back over to the UK to be tried in their country for the unaliving of their citizen? How does Interpol involve with that, since I guess their police over there were the ones that got them involved? So I'm just curious how an international case like this, where it has something to do with a U.S. citizen unaliving a out of non-U.S. citizen case hand.
June, so great to hear from you, June. I always love to hear from you. Thank you so much for all your support, and thank you for calling in. June from Stockton, California. All right. I'm seeing in the chat that people are saying that Gisela covered this on Grizzly True Crime. I'm sure she did an excellent deep dive into this whole thing. I'm going to tell you guys up front, this is some graphic content. This is a really wild and disturbing story. So if you're not in the mood on a Sunday morning, I'm not going to get all into the dirty details, but it's just the circumstances of what took place are troubling. But Dwain Hall, 53 years old, from Florida, just a monster of a human being. How does this all play out? Sonia Exelby is her name. She was a 32-year-old woman from Portsmouth, England, and she was very troubled, battling with mental health issues, battling with the compulsion to want to take her own life. Okay. And apparently she had even attempted something like this before, and her family and loved ones had stopped her. But this time they were not able to. On some sort of deep, dark fetish website, she contacts Dwain Hall in the US and discusses with him her plans to have someone kill her. According to the prosecutors in a press release, they said, quote, she planned to travel to the United States with the intention of meeting with online individuals who would be willing to kill her violently. This was some sort of wish that she had. She wanted her to take her own life, but she wanted to do it at the hands of another person in a violent manner. And Dwain Hall, being the sick individual that he is more than happy to oblige. She apparently was even willing to pay for this. So they communicate over Telegram. That's an app I'm not familiar with. And she, in fact, travels to the U.S. And that's why Interpol got involved, because she then goes missing. They know that she's got a ticket. She doesn't return on the return ticket. She's now missing. Nobody knows where she's from. Well, that's because Dwain had taken her to an Airbnb in Marion County, Florida, and she is discovered stabbed to death on October 17th inside of that. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if I'm right on that, if she was still inside of the Airbnb or if he had disposed of her body somewhere. But to add to the sickening nightmare that this whole thing is, he apparently videotaped part of it, and he would videotape her after he had beaten her and tortured her, telling the camera how this is what she wanted. Essentially, giving consent for what she was experiencing. But according to the reports I read, it's obvious that she is under distress at these times and probably had realized this is in fact not what she wanted. Going on in that statement from the prosecutors, they say that she traveled to the U.S., quote, to be possibly sexually abused, tortured, and murdered by unknown individuals living in the United States. This was a very, very sick young woman who got it in her head that this is what she wanted and how she wanted to end her life. And then this sick individual, Dwain Hall, followed through on it. So he's looking at first-degree murder in Florida. To answer any lingering questions out there, no, you cannot consent to murder. You cannot consent to SA. But and his trial, I don't believe, has started yet. To answer your direct question, though, June, after they convict him, can the UK bring him back? And in the research I did, it sounds like there could be a mechanism for doing that. I don't think that they would, and I don't think that the U.S. would were the circumstances switched. In other words, if a U.S. Woman had traveled to the U.K. and been killed there, and they tried him there, I don't think they would go about trying to extradite him to then try him here. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible, because there is, the U.S., there are certain treaties and agreements and international kind of agreements that allow for, if a crime is committed against one of your citizens, even if out of state, as long as you're able to extradite that person, you can try that person. The U.S. does that sometimes. And there is, I imagine, the same process and mechanism in place for bringing the person back to England if they killed a UK citizen, which is in fact what he did here. But to our kind of question earlier, I imagine the American justice system is going to be far less lenient on him that he might even receive in the UK, but doesn't mean that they can't do it or wouldn't want to do it anyways. I imagine this man's going to be in prison for a very, this is one of those LWOP situations we were talking about earlier, if not the death penalty, but I didn't read any information on that. But I encourage you all, I don't know if we found the link, but I encourage you all to go to Gizela's channel to check it out. Oh, She Bear says she changed her mind in the last second, and that is so important. It is important, but it's also not. Like, I don't even care if she didn't change her mind or if there was no proof that she changed her mind. This is still a murder, still a first-degree murder. Like I said, you cannot consent to these types of things. Misbehaving says, poor girl changed her mind. The video of the interrogation was long, but very eye-opening. He's such a prolific liar, says Wendy Joan. So check it out, guys. Like I said, I encourage all of you. Gisela does such incredible work over there to check it out. She did, I'm sure, and a thorough job. And there you go. There's the there's the link to her channel, and then you can find it there, I'm sure. All right. Thank you so much, June from Stockton, California. Let's keep it rolling here, shall we?
Hi, Josh. It's Heather from Lancaster, up in the armpit of our beautiful LA County again. I did some Googling after listening to you talk about the Athena case and the death penalty. I want to know how you feel about California having, and I'm on Google right now for the record, California having the largest death row population and not having had an execution in 20 years is what my Google says. Newsom did the 2019 apparently memorandum blocking it, citing certain different things. And then also how you feel about what Google tells me, mass resentencing in 2024 that reduced the number of condemned prisoners, but yet we still have 700 inmates on death row still. Thank you all, CC crew and fam and everybody, for everything that you do. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Heather. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for the excellent question. Let's first put Lancaster, California on the map. There you go. Up in northern LA County. This is a great question. Really, really interesting and a good opportunity to kind of discuss exactly what is going on in California with the death penalty. First, when people say they don't have the death penalty in California, that is not correct. It is very much so on the books, and people still do get sentenced to the death penalty. In fact, in the Nick Reiner case that we discussed a little bit earlier, they are contemplating whether or not to pursue the death penalty. So what are we talking about saying they don't have a death penalty? The death penalty exists as a law on the books in California. What happened, though, is that essentially California politicians decided we're just not doing it. And in 2006 was the last time somebody was executed in California. So that is true. It's been 20 years since they've actually followed through on an execution. But that was more of a problem of appeals and the bottlenecking of the appeals system. It wasn't until 2019 that the governor got involved. And what he did is, like you pointed out, Heather, he put into place what's called a moratorium. What this was him essentially saying, I don't care what the voters say, I'm doing this. I've decided I don't like the death penalty and I'm doing this. And he not only said we're not going to execute anybody, he actually went about closing down the death chamber in San Quentin. There's only one death row in California. It's in San Quentin, up in the Bay Area. And that is where the death chamber was, the gas chamber. And he shut all that down, essentially shut down death row on his own. No laws passed. In fact, the laws that were passed were all in favor of the death penalty. If you're asking me how I feel about the death penalty, to be honest with you, as bizarre as it is to say, I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I see the good in it sometimes. I see that there are some crimes that we as a society want to say, prison's not enough. We want you off of this earth. We don't want to share air with you. I can understand that. I also understand how it's an incredibly powerful tool sometimes. The people, defendants, looking at the death penalty are more inclined to take a plea deal or give over information to avoid something like the death penalty. But I also know that it's, the idea of executions taking place take forever. It creates a lot of appeals. It creates a lot of logistic issues. There are people who are morally and ethically opposed to it, which I'm not saying those people are wrong. So I get it. But I think more than that, I have a problem with when you've asked the voters, how do they feel about it? And they've told you to ignore that. In 2012, California operates under the proposition system, if you don't know, where in order to get certain laws passed, certainly a amendment to the Constitution passed, you need to put it before the voters in the form of a proposition. So Prop 34, 2012 was an attempt to undo the death penalty, to have it removed from the books, defeated by 53%. 2016, 4 years later, Prop 62, also another attempt to have, and by the way, when I say attempts, I mean hundreds of thousands of dollars put into ad campaigns to have these things, to have the death penalty removed and put to the voters. And the voters of California, 53% said, no, we want it on the books. And in fact, in that same year, 2016, Prop 66 was a proposition to speed up the death penalty. Not only did they say we want it on the books, they actually said we want the executions conducted in a more efficient manner. That passed. Now, that ran into legal challenges and hasn't, in fact, been enacted, obviously, and then the moratorium has affected that. But I think more than anything, what are we doing here? Like, either get it off the books, but if the voters say they want it on the books, then it's the law of the land. And I don't think one governor should affect that either way, right? I mean, think about if we didn't have a death penalty, if the voters had voted to remove it, and then you get a governor in office who's like, nah, I really like that. I think we're going to open up the death row again. I mean, it's like, that's the part that kind of blows my mind. So if that answers your question, Heather, I hope so. I hope that kind of explains what's going on in California. All right. Nana Afor says she's been a member for 2 months. Happy Crewversary. Says best mods and chat. I agree completely. Proud Grizzly. Happy Crewversary. 110% juiced. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I want. I want full effort plus some. Jen Wowza, happy Crewversary, says only channel I never miss. Josh is funny, kind, thorough, and honest. Oh, thank you. Who else educates us like he does? No one. Love when he beats the horse. Good. I call it bloviating, but you call it educational. I'll take that. All right. Thank you all so much for the kind words. Where are we off to next here? I've lost my place, I think. And now I found it. All right, here we go.
Hi, Josh, Tiff, Caitlin, Mods, and CC crew. It's Little Miss Red Velvet from Manchester, hopefully sounding much better than last week. I want to talk about Anna Kepner, the stepson being charged as an adult with the previous text history. I agree with that, and I think he should be charged as an adult. My question is, what do you think about the mother being charged? The examples of Crumbly and Colin Gray as parents for knowing of the issues and putting them in the same room on the cruise and forgetting to give him his meds. I just feel that a precedent has been set with all these parents being charged for their sons, daughters' crimes. I just thought it would be a good question. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday. I will be there for an hour, but I do have to head off early. So see you then. Take care. Bye.
LMRV from Manchester, England. I hope you're still here. I think we're still within that window. So if you're here, thank you so much for the question. Appreciate you. Always love hearing from you. And I'm glad that you're feeling better. When I first heard your question, I thought, well, you know, of course they're not going to charge the parents. But you identify something that is exactly the root of the problem that I was trying to talk about when we talked about these other cases, like the Crumbleys. So Anna Kepner, if you guys don't know, this is the young woman, very tragic story, 18 years old, loses her life. Now her step brother, who was 16 at the time, has been charged with her murder, mechanical asphyxiation. SA is also involved in the whole thing. Really awful. He's probably going to prison for the rest of his life. It's being charged on the federal side because it took place on the high seas. And LMRV says, well, listen, you told me that parents, even if they weren't directly involved in the crime, but they turned a blind eye, or they somehow helped facilitate it by realizing the dangerousness of a situation and not doing anything about it, that they can be charged with a crime and, in fact, convicted for a crime. That was the thing about the Crumbleys that was so groundbreaking, is that they weren't charged with child neglect. They weren't charged with some sort of negligent handling of a weapon. They were charged with second-degree murder, okay? And I think they were actually convicted of manslaughter. But still, that is a crime connected to the killings, not some sort of tangential crime. The crime itself, the target itself, they were charged with that and convicted for it. So Little Miss Red Velvet says, all right, Ritter, what about in this case? Well, that's why I say it's not entirely an unfair question at this point. Were the parents aware of the situation between Anna and her stepbrother? Were they aware that it was potentially dangerous? Were they warned about it? Did Anna complain about it? Did they put them in that room in spite of it, knowing that? I don't know. Again, a few more steps removed from what we're dealing with in the Crumbleys, because in the Crumbleys, we're talking about they gave him access to a weapon of death, right? That wasn't what existed here. So I imagine, I'm not only imagine, I'm certain they're not going to try to charge the parents here. But this is that slippery slope problem that we were discussing. Where do you draw the line? Oh, is it guns? Is that what we're saying? You have to have access to guns and a volatile situation. Is that the law now? Is that the landscape of the law as we should understand it? Well, they didn't say that. What about knives? What about a car? What about something else? Is it access to a weapon? Or is it just realizing that that person's volatile and dangerous and not do? This is where it becomes problematic, because the problem is that huge step that you're talking about, the individual acts of a separate person. Her stepbrother is 100% allegedly and solely responsible for her death. And when you start to include other people in on that who didn't directly contribute to it, like I said, the Crumbleys would be very different. What was the case recently out of Texas, too? I'm blanking on the name. It would be very different if the Crumbleys, or the father in that case, had handed him the gun and said, you know what you need to do, kid? Go out there and get it done. That would be aiding and abetting. And we all understand that theory of liability, criminal liability. What we don't understand, and Colt Gray, thank you, in Georgia. Sorry, I said I was even wrong on the state. At least it was in the South. What we don't understand is this new theory of liability, where it has to do with you didn't directly do anything, but we feel like you didn't do enough, and therefore the independent of actions of another person, you're on the hook for. And not just on the hook, going to prison. Uncharted, slippery slope is what I say. Thank you, LMRV. Excellent question. And we hope that Anna obviously gets some justice out of all of this. Really tragic, tragic case. That whole family is never going to be the same. All right, let's keep it rolling. How are we doing? You guys having a good time? I hope so. I saw that some of you were insufficiently juiced ahead of time, and I hope that that is all changed now. Where have we been? We've been to Manchester. We've been to Lancaster. We've been to Montana and Melbourne and Bedford. Been all over the place. Great questions all over the world. Keep it rolling, Ritter. Here we go. See, I upset the tech gods when I talk too much. They just say, press the buttons, dummy. Quit talking and press the buttons. Now I've lost my place. Hold on. Oh, I see why I lost my place. Here we go.
Good morning, Josh and CC crew and family. This is Emily calling from Lancaster, California. I had a question in regards to DeCarlos Brown Jr. He was the man that stabbed the Ukrainian refugee on either a bus or a subway. I saw a couple days ago where he was found incompetent to stand trial. So my question is, what happens? What happens if he is never found competent to stand trial? Does the government just get to keep holding him, or is that not a thing because he never gets his day in court? Is there a pickle factory he can live in somewhere for the rest of his days? So if you could just shed some light on that, that'd be great. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Emily from Lancaster, California. Look at that. That's why I got thrown off. Heather and Emily, do you guys know each other? You should meet up, both in Lancaster. What are the odds? Very cool. Emily, great question. Talking about DeCarlos Brown and the horrific murder of Irina Zarutska. You guys have all seen the video. I am sure she was a Ukrainian refugee here in the US, North Carolina, just doing her job, just doing work, had worked at a pizza shop, hops on a commuter train on her way home, not bothering anybody, not any yeah, I'll get to the pickle factory in a second. Not bothering anyone, didn't interact with DeCarlos Brown. That's her sitting there just on her phone, minding her own business. That is DeCarlos behind her. And what is circled there is him pulling out a knife. He pulls out the knife, sits there for a moment, then stands up and stabs her 3 times in the neck. And this poor girl, no one helps her, no one in the world, alone, afraid, bleeds out and dies. And it's horrible. And it was further compounded when we find out about his criminal history, because he had been arrested something like over a dozen times before and in and out of the system, and signs of mental health problems. And why was he on the street? Well, now his attorneys are using that mental health issue, I guess, somewhat to his benefit. What they're arguing is that he is not competent to stand trial. So a report came out in December where a mental evaluation was done of him that said that he is not competent to stand trial. They have therefore asked the judge to continue a hearing on whether or not they should even be allowed to pursue the death penalty against him and his fitness to stand trial for about 6 months. To your question, what happens if he's found incompetent? In North Carolina, it's interesting. If he's found incompetent, they actually dismiss the case. Now, don't lose your minds. That doesn't mean he gets out. That means he remains in custody in mental health care. If he regains competency, that dismissal is recharged because it's dismissed without prejudice. In California, we do things differently. We just suspend the proceedings, which to me seems like a better way of doing it. It just less kind of gray area. So even if he regains competency, they can still recharge him. Now, what happens if he doesn't regain competency? Well, that's when they start to put things like conservatorships in place, which are civil actions. It's a civil, not a criminal, a civil conservatorship. And it's petitioned to have him essentially locked up in a mental facility, not free to go, but also not in prison. Well, to further muddy the waters on all of this, he also has a federal case. He's been charged federally. Remember, in federal court, there is no straightforward murder. So you have to have what's called a federal hook. Here, it's that the murder took place on a mechanism of mass transportation. You murder somebody on a bus, on a plane, on a train, the feds can use that as a federal hook. And so he's been charged with murder, and they are, my understanding, seeking the death penalty in that case. And in that case, he has not been found incompetent. Now, they're doing a mental evaluations in that case as well. But now you've got state side, he's been found unfit. Federal side, he has not been found unfit. And the Fed's side of it is proceeding forward. Now, what do? What if he gets convicted on the federal side of things? Don't you think that's going to create some problems if on the state side of things, they found him incompetent? That very well could happen, by the way, too, because these competency determinations are just made by mental health experts giving opinions. As I've said before, opinion evidence is not really evidence. It's an opinion on the evidence. So to answer your question, who knows where this whole thing's headed? All we know is that right now things are on pause on the state side, and on the federal side, they're trying to proceed forward, but they're going to have to see where he ends up on the state side. It's, to me, a real tragedy because I feel like this woman deserves justice and it should be done cleanly and quickly, but it's going to turn into a whole mess. And that whole mess comes back to, what was he doing on the street anyways? If he's this unwell that he is not even fit to stand trial, then what is a judge doing releasing him on the streets so that he can run into a beautiful young woman like Irina and take her life? Really, really sad. Talk about a breakdown in the system. Real sad. But thank you so much for that, Emily from Lancaster. I expect that you and Heather will have a play date soon. All right. Allie B from Tennessee. Happy birthday. 12 months. Happy Sunday Fun Day, everybody. Love all of you and hope you have a blessed day. Also, I have a new case for you all. I'm going to call about. It's a sad one. Oh, good. I'm looking forward to that. The Lee Hilliard has been a member for 4 months. Happy crewversary. Thanks, Josh, Tiff, members, and mods for all you do to make this great channel. Juiced. Appreciate that, Lee. And Scotch. What happened? Scotch's mom. Happy crewversary. How about a meetup in North Florida? Crewbies Unite. Oh, I love this. We're planning meetups now. I like that. Maybe we can plan some meetups when we do our Courtroom Confidential World Tour 2026, 2027. Sorry. All right. Let's keep it rolling.
Hey, Josh, CC fam. Cheers on Sunday Fun Day. This is Annie Kay calling from Santa Barbara, California. And I have a question about a couple of trials, Tanner Horner and Tracy Grist trials. In both cases, the defendants have pleaded guilty. And yet it seems like the penalty phase or what follows is a complete trial. I just wondered if you could comment on that and explain to us why that seems to happen when someone has already admitted to guilt. I understand they need to decide a punishment, but it seems like the complete trial is happening, at least in Tanner Horner's case. Thanks very much and have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Annie from Santa Barbara, California. Let's put you on the map there. Lovely Santa Barbara. What's the name of the place I always ask about? The place on the dock. I forget it every time. What is it? Somebody's going to tell me. That's all I think of every time I think about Santa Barbara. Annie K, thank you so much. Brophy. That's right, Brophies. Talking about the Tanner Horner case. I know that you guys are interested in this case. We've received some questions about it. I know that it's in the news a lot. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't have it in me to talk about this one. I really don't. It is just some things, we talk about a lot of awful stuff, and I've been doing this a long time, and I've heard and talked about and handled many things that are just would make you lose sleep. Every once in a while, something just hits me right in the gut. And we've purposefully kind of avoided talking about this one. And when you guys ask questions, I want to answer the questions, but we're not doing any kind of deep dive into this and the circumstances around it. And I hope that you all appreciate that and understand it. But this beautiful young girl, 7 years old, I cannot get the images out of my head of her on that truck. And what this absolute monster piece of human filth did to her. And he has pled guilty. He's looking at the death penalty, and he decided to skip over the entire trial. I don't even want to look at him. He decided to skip over the entire trial, and just go straight to the penalty phase. I think that was probably because his attorneys sat him down and said, listen, this is beyond, like, we've got nothing here. I mean, just so you guys know, the crime itself is essentially caught on tape, not on videotape, but they have audio. I mean, he confesses to it. Like, this isn't like something where his attorneys might go, this sounds really bad, but we've got a defense here. They have no defense, and it is horrific. And to put a jury through that, where you're contesting his guilt, and then turn around and go, okay, now that you found him guilty, we really want to beg for his life. I think they thought there's no way we can maintain any kind of credibility and do that. Why don't you just admit to it? And then at least we can beg for your life without having even attempted to try to say you didn't do this. And maybe you might convince somebody to not put you to death. Well, good luck with that, especially in the state of Texas, and especially with how horrific of what he's done. But to your question, Annie, why then is it seem like it's a full-fledged trial? Well, in the penalty phase of a trial, you are allowed to consider aggravating and mitigating circumstances. So he's going to put on evidence in mitigation where he's going to talk about, oh, my mom drank when I was in the womb, and oh, I had a rough childhood, and oh, woe is me. And this alternate personality is really who did it, and it wasn't me, and blah, blah, blah. And the prosecution is going to go, okay, well, here's the circumstances in aggravation. And those circumstances happen to be the circumstances of the crime. So they're putting on all of this evidence because the jury needs to know it. They're asking the jury to put this man to death. They need to know why. And so, yeah, they're going to put on all this evidence. Now, it's not being contested in the sense of, is that actually him? Did he actually do these things? But it's being shown to them so that they understand how horrific a crime this was and why the prosecutor is going to stand on 2 feet with a straight back and say, put this man to death. And I hope that they do. And I think it tells you something too. I am sure they had conversations about he'll take a plea if you take the death penalty off the table. Undoubtedly, those took place. And the prosecutor said, are you kidding me? For what you did? You know, he was delivering Barbies to her house when he grabbed her. Anyhow, thank you, Annie. You know, as much as I don't like talking about it, it is an interesting kind of legal thing that we don't see all that happen as to what's taking place there. Annie in Santa Barbara, appreciate you and appreciate the question. Let's keep it rolling here.
Hey, happy Sunday fun day, everybody. This is Beth R. from Minneapolis. Hey, I'm watching the Wednesday Night Live right now, and I'm just wondering if you can explain what Marsy's Law is, where that originated, and everything behind it, because I'm not familiar with that. And I muted you so I can leave this message. So if you're doing it right now on the live, sorry for this duplicative question. All right. Hope everybody's having a great day. Bye.
Beth from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Let's put you on the map. There we go, Beth. Great question. Marsy's Law. Again, one of those things that I kind of toss around as if we all know what we're talking about, but what exactly is Marsy's Law? Well, Marsy's Law came from the case of Marsy Nicholas. She was tragically killed in 1983 here in California, and her father runs into her alleged killer who's out on bail. It was her ex-boyfriend had stalked her and killed her. And while the trial was pending, the family is out at the grocery store, and all of a sudden there he is walking the aisles of the grocery store. And her father was so shocked and offended by this because they had no idea. It wasn't even the shock and offense that he was out on bail. People get bail, right? And if they're able to make that bail, it's kind of like, what are you going to do? Now, you could argue maybe he should have got more bail. Fine. They weren't exactly bothered by that as much as the idea that nobody let them know. Nobody picked up the phone and said, hey, by the way, this guy made bail. He lives in that community. We have a stay away order, but you may prepare yourself. You may run into him. This is a small town type of thing. So her father did something about it. He took it to legislators and he raised a campaign, and he got laws passed. Not only did he get laws passed, he got the Constitution amended in California. Again, this came up as a proposition in 2008 called Prop 9. It was the Victims' Bill of Rights Act of 2008, amended the California Constitution so that victims can have certain things guaranteed to them, like communication, to have a voice in court at certain hearings. The idea that you cannot, we've seen this come up in other states. They have very similar laws. Sometimes they're also referred to as Marsy's Law, where they have a sentencing of a person and the victims were never informed or have an opportunity to speak, and they got to go back and unwind that sentencing. There was a case just recently we were talking about. I know Anand Syed, that became an issue, but there was a case just recently. Jesse Mack Butler. That's what we're dealing with there, is they don't feel that they were properly informed or had a voice in his sentencing. And they're taking advantage of that state's similar laws. So they have a right to be heard. Victims have a right to be heard, notified. Their safety is important, and restitution to them. So all really, really good stuff. And by the way, taken very seriously. As a prosecutor, you're in big trouble with your boss if you're not informing the victims of what's going on, if you're not getting protective orders, if you're not notifying them of their opportunity to speak at certain hearings. Big stuff. It's taken very seriously. So that's where that all comes from. Marsy Nichols, who was tragically killed in 1983. And it's a very important part of the carrying out of criminal justice today. Thank you so much, Beth. From Minneapolis. Nana of 4, thank you for supporting the mods with coffees. Appreciate you. Court Dog Daniel, one of my dudes, says, thank you for supporting the mod so much with coffee. And Chloe Circa 76, thank you for supporting the mods with coffees. Everybody's keeping those mods wide awake this morning, so we appreciate that. All right. Let's keep it rolling here.
Hello, this is Sonia from Chicago. Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday Fun Day. So my question is about the hookers. If this were a U.S. FBI investigation, actually, let me back up. So one of the things that you said, Josh, you wonder if she was ever on the dinghy or something of that nature. And I was thinking, I wonder if they were able to do like, luminol type of tests on the boat, if they searched the boat, if that would be something that maybe that we would do as the FBI. I don't know. I'm worried that he cleaned up the crime scene, because I do believe there is one. Anyway, what do you think, Josh? Thank you. All right. Have a good day. You're the best. Bye.
Sonia, always love hearing from you. Sonia from Chicago, Illinois, putting Chicago on the map. Yeah, this is interesting. We're talking about Brian and Lynette Hooker. Lynette obviously went, according to Brian, went overboard tragically in the Bahamas on that 8-foot little dinghy there that we see. They were they were boating to their larger ship, a sailing yacht that they had been living on for some time. Problem was, it was 7:30 at night. The sun was going down, and the winds were rough, and there were apparently the seas were rough, and there were apparently high winds. And she goes overboard. She's got the key. This is all according to Brian. She's got the key to the boat attached to her. It's one of those things where if she goes overboard, it disengages the motor so that the boat can't continue to drift off. But because of that, he was unable to power the boat to get back to her. And he's saying that with the winds and the seas, she drifted out to sea and he was unable to save her. So he had to paddle back to shore. It took him 7 to 8 hours to do that before he was able to inform authorities that she had gone overboard at 4 a.m. in the morning. And Sonia says, well, listen, Sonia, I think, is rightfully kind of concerned about whether or not the Bahamian, I think that's how you call it, authorities are up to the job of investigating this. She wants to know, did they perform luminol on that boat? Did they look for evidence of foul play on that boat? I hope that they did. I know that the Coast Guard has also been involved in the search and perhaps the criminal investigation in this. You would think that that would be easily done. Was there any blood spilled on that boat? Was there any signs of a struggle on that boat? Here's the problem, though. Your crime scene's the ocean, right? And just because, unless you get blood, if you get blood, that might be something. If you get, certainly luminol shows you there was a large amount of blood that was cleaned up, big evidence, right? But if you, and I don't even know if they've done this, if you DNA swab the boat, what does that give you? So her DNA's on the boat. Yeah, she was on the boat. He's not saying she wasn't on the boat. And that's where my question came from, is that we don't even know the most basic starting point in this case. We don't know if she was ever on the boat. Like, and I say this up front too, I struggle with this case so much because what I would really hate to do, and I'm trying not to do that, is to get all worked up and hyperbolic and jazzed about this man being guilty when what if in fact he's not? Okay. These things do happen. Ironically, when he was arrested and they were taking him on a boat to the mainland to be interrogated, he fell off of that boat. Okay, so it does happen. Wouldn't it be awful for all of us to be going after this poor man? And he's also experiencing the most tragic moment in his entire life. All I know is that there are a lot of bizarre circumstances surrounding all of this. I think it's bizarre for them to have been out there that late at night. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's frequently when people go back to their boats at night. They've had a few drinks. They had a good dinner. Now they go back to their boat for the night. I don't know. I don't know if it's all that bizarre to have been on the ocean in that kind of weather. To me, it seems unsafe. There's been evidence that she never drove the boat, that he always motored it. Why isn't he the one with the key? Why is she the one with the key? Why wasn't he able to, somebody goes over a boat. I don't know how quickly they drift off. Apparently she was a good swimmer. Are you telling me she's not wearing a life vest? In those few moments, he couldn't save her. A lot of questions. And one of those questions is, okay, if we're believing he's a suspect, which apparently he's been treated that way, how do we prove she was ever on that boat? Wouldn't that be an excellent cover story? You just, no, there's no GPS on that boat. He just paddles it in, throws the keys in the water at some point, paddles it in at 4 o'clock in the morning, says, I lost my wife to the ocean. Isn't that horrific? And nobody's going to be like, well, her body hasn't drifted ashore, therefore you're lying. That can't be proven. I mean, she could be dead in suitcase buried in the forest for all we know. Again, if this man is innocent, I feel awful, and I'm not trying. I hope you all understand. I'm just trying to bring up what I think are reasonable questions here. And there's a lot of reasonable questions here, and there's a lot of unanswered questions. And that's why he's now back in the U.S. He left. They didn't indict him. He got on a plane and he came back home. And that's where things stand. So I don't think we're going to have a break on this unless they find her. If they find her body, well, certainly if they find her body anywhere but the ocean, he's got major problems. But if they find her in the ocean and they're able to find evidence of foul play, we could have a break in this case. Or they find her and there's no evidence of foul play, and then we're just right where we're at right now. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Tiff Ritter. Tiff Ritter, always on top of things. We did an interview where we had Scott Rouse from the behavior panel on to talk about Brian Hooker's interviews and his body language. And it was excellent, mind-blowing. He's so good. And he brought up things that I had never even noticed in some of these interviews. Really interesting. So check it out. I don't want to kind of steal all the thunder of it. I'll leave you just with that tease. But he brought up some stuff that Brian's obviously got some, or pardon me, Scott's obviously got some strong feelings about this whole thing. I encourage you all to check it out. CDD says, CC, let's meet at Wendy's trial. There you go. That's where we'll all meet up for the Florida meetup. Joy W. Can says, thank you for supporting the mods. She doesn't say that. We say that to Joy W. Can. Thank you so much for supporting the mods with coffees. And, oh yeah, let's get to 800 likes. Oh, we'll give some memberships at 800 likes. There you go. That's a good incentive. Appreciate that. And hit that like button, everybody. It's free. Like I said, it's tax-free. Government won't know about it. I promise you that. And if they do, if they come knocking on your door and ask about it, I will represent you. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Happy Sunday Fundy, Joshua, Tiffany, Kaylin, the best mods ever, CC family and guests, Felicia K. Mayo, Humboldt, Tennessee. Joshua with children just never seeming to never be in the news. I was wondering if there are ways other than what we normally do to teach, especially small children, ways to try to protect themselves. There's always scream, scratch their eyes, pee on yourself, go limp to make it harder to grab you up, and to be you too friendly, kick them in the nanu region. But is there more? Are there classes out there that we could take children to teach them other ways to protect themselves, and at least maybe give them some time to alert an adult that might be able to prevent some unfortunate incident to these little ones? Now, y'all, hit the like and subscribe. It's free. It's also free to chat, but above all, hug the little ones in your life. That's also free. Y'all have us a great Sunday Fundy. Bye.
AKM from Humboldt, Tennessee. Always love hearing from you. Right in the Koenigs. Says therapist, you know. That's right. Get them right in the Koenigs. Great question. Something that obviously as a father of 3 little ones, I think about a lot. I will tell you this. I am no expert on this, on kind of self-defense or child self-defense or something like that. But I will tell you that just in my experience in dealing with crimes like this, it is criminals want easy, right? I say this all the time. If they're going to look to grab someone, they're going to look for the most distracted person. They're going to look for the person who's looking on their phone, got headphones on, not paying attention to their surroundings. That's an easy person to grab. That person's not the person who's looking straight forward, making eye contact with everybody, looks like they got somewhere to go. They don't want to deal with that person. So a lot of it has to do with how do you present yourself ahead of time? But also in my experience, it is the person, the children who do raise all hell that are not what they want to deal with. Screaming, scratching, yelling, crying, kicking, fighting like all hell. They don't want to deal with that. It's much easier to drop that kid, get in your van, your windowless van, and move on to the next victim. I mean, we think about, again, not to bring up this horrible case, but when we go back to Athena, I don't know if there was ever all that much evidence that she fought before she got in that van. And that's the problem. It's the secondary location. They talk about this all the time. You do not want to go to wherever they want to take you to next, right? If they want to assault you right then and there, you fight like all heck, but you make sure that doesn't include taking you somewhere else, because where they take you somewhere else, that's where the real bad stuff happens. So everything that you mentioned, AKM, all of that stuff, screaming at the top of your lungs, fighting, biting, kicking, all of that. I did also look into if there are classes. I know most local law enforcements will have stuff like that, educational classes they'll put on if you ask them to, for a class, for a daycare or something like that. I also looked into this this organization called Kid Power. It's kidpower.org. I want to say this up front. I don't know much about them at all. I didn't do a whole bunch of vetting. I just did some searching and they came up more than once. And it looks like this is very much their mission statement, but I don't want to encourage people to check this out and it's some sort of scam. I don't know. It could be very legitimate or it could be a scam. I just don't want to lead you guys down the wrong path, but I will say I looked into it and it does seem like they're very concerned about this kind of education and, also stopping things like bullying and things like that, but also just kind of keeping kids empowered to protect themselves. There you go. Therapist says kidpower.org. So check it out. I would love for anybody who has any experience with these folks, if they have some feedback, if they are a legit good organization, I would love to promote them. I'm not, I'm just saying, shout their praises. I just hadn't had the time to really, speak to anybody over there or anybody who has experience with them. But I'm glad that there are people like that out there trying to do something like that. Thank you so much, Alicia K. Mayo from Humboldt, Tennessee, for asking that question. Something that certainly everybody should be concerned with, but those of us who've got little ones, I do think about it quite a bit. All right. Where are we off to next? Where is our plane landing next?
Hi Josh, Tiff Mod, CC Crew. It's Shiba True Crime, Grizzly signing in from Hungary, Europe. Sorry for my voice, I'm currently down with the flu, but I have a question. Mostly broad, but at this moment tied to the Celeste Rivas case. Niama mentioned on your latest stream that both sides use press conferences to speak to possible jurors long before trial. How much does this narrative shaping actually affect jury selection? I mean, does it make it harder to find an unbiased juror, or is it just a standard part of the litigation PR game? Thank you all, and have a nice Sunday fun day. Bye.
She Bear True Crime from Hungary. Thank you so much. Have we had somebody from Hungary before? Is this our first call? Look at that. She Bear putting Hungary on the map for the very first time. I appreciate you. Appreciate you calling in. You are now the president of our Courtroom Confidential fan club in Hungary. Oh, there she is. Oh, my word, it's me. Well, thank you so much. Look at that bear that you have to protect you. That's another way to protect yourself. Just have a pet bear. Great question, She Bear. She Bear's asking, how much essentially does pretrial press affect jury selection? In my view, not nearly as much as you might think. It does seem like it's a rather en vogue argument for defense attorneys, especially, to be making, that somehow the mention of their client's case in the media is going to so infiltrate the minds of the community that there is no possible way their client could get a fair trial. I don't know why this has become, I don't know if I'm paying attention more or if it's just happening more. But by the way, televisions and cameras were not invented yesterday. I mean, we've been talking about high profile cases since Menendez, and before that, really, Menendez, OJ. But it's like these attorneys nowadays just feel like it's just the enemy of their client is the media, not what their client did. It's their problems. The media is really their problem. The media's skew, the media's spin on what their client did, not what their client did. Where else was I going with that? I don't know. My mind's wandering. But most recently, we saw this come up in the Tyler Robinson case. They're making a big push on this one. They want the cameras. First, it was you can't show him in his prison outfit. Okay, that's fine. Then you can't show him in shackles. Okay, fine again. Now you're showing his face too much. Okay, well, that's bizarre. Well, we saw him talking to his attorney. Well, that people do speak. We want the cameras in the back, and they can never show him. And they're like directing this entire thing. And now they want the cameras out entirely. And the irony of all of this is that they are saying that it's the media's coverage that is so affecting the community that they cannot get a fair trial for their client. And they have highlighted a bunch of different media outlets and their coverage of the case. And they put on an expert, this Dr. Brian Edelman, at the last hearing on Friday. And he talked about, it's horrible. And the media is so sensational and they're so biased. And they're saying all these awful things about poor little Tyler Robinson. And he's never, ever, ever, ever going to get a fair trial. But the big gap in logic that I haven't heard discussed by the prosecution or the judge is that what they're complaining about is the media. And their way of solving the media is to ask for no cameras. No cameras doesn't eliminate the media. Even if you got rid of the cameras, the media is still going to report on it. They're still going to have coverage. They're still going to say mean things about your client. You can't shut that down because of the Constitution. So what are you really doing by removing the cameras? Well, you're making it less transparent and you're making it harder for the actual truth to come out. Now, are you worried about the media or are you worried about the truth? To me, if we've got a problem with misinformation, and I hate that word, but if we've got a problem with skewed information, twisted spin on reporting, then put the cameras in there. The cameras are unbiased. They're just showing what's happening. Doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't logically connect for me. And in fact, one of their biggest complaints was recently about this bullet fragment and how the ATF said that the bullet fragment cannot conclusively be matched to Tyler Robinson's rifle. And the prosecution responded by saying, well, this is an inconclusive report, not saying that they excluded the rifle, just that they can't match it to the rifle. But the defense got all up in arms about that. And they were asking for sanctions against the prosecution for even commenting on that. Well, that had nothing to do with cameras in the courtroom. That had to do with the filing. And my point is the media is covering this. Sorry, but it's a case of great public interest. And they're going to cover it. And having the cameras in the courtroom, you have not, in my view, made a convincing argument as to why the cameras are causing the problem. But I digress. Your question, your excellent question, She Bear True Crime, was, does it really have effect on jury selection? Obviously, the more saturation of a case you're going to get, the more people you're going to get that come into court that know about it. And out of those people, you're going to get some people who say, I've already made up my mind. But we have an excellent process for taking care of all of that, and that is jury selection and voir dire, and just asking people, have you heard about it? Having them fill out a questionnaire if you really want to get in depth. and having people talk about it. Have they heard about it? Have they made up their mind? And you kick those people off, or you ask for a for-cause challenge of those people if they've had too much exposure to the case ahead of time. But I'll be honest with you, I've worked on big cases, huge cases, cases that were all over the news, constant cameras in courtroom, constant coverage, constant media attention. And it never ceased to amaze me how many jurors you would go, I've never heard of this person. I've never in my life heard of this person. The defendant sitting over there that everybody in this room seems to know about, never heard of him. I've heard about how the Dodgers are doing. I've heard about how the Kardashians and what they're up to. I know about the latest in Hell's Kitchen, but I can't tell you about who that guy is over there and what he's done. People are not as caught up in this world as we all sometimes think. They will, when this goes to trial, finally, there will be jurors in there who are going to go, I've never heard of this guy. Or they'll go, oh yeah, I remember the guy that got shot at the university, but I don't know anything about it. So I don't buy that it is as pervasive as they may think that it is. But thank you, She Bear True Crime from Hungary. Appreciate you calling in. Always great to hear from you. All right. Chihuahua Mama, happy crewversary, says, I feel so much smarter being a part of this community. You are smarter because it's the smartest community on YouTube. Nani Ann has been a member for 9 months. I love Josh's rants. Appreciate that. Sometimes I feel like somebody needs to get a hook and bring me off stage. Grizzly Bear Kellied has been a member for 9 months. Sunday Funday is the best. Happy crewversary, Grizzly Bear Kellied. All right. Where are we off to?
Hey everyone, this is Sneemac in Alexandria, Virginia. Josh, my question is about the Nancy Guthrie case. If Uncle Google is correct, then the Pima County District Attorney's Office is a vertical unit, much like the one in Orange County that we've heard Matt Murphy describe, where the prosecutor is involved in the case from the start. So I'm wondering if you're as puzzled as I am about why the District Attorney's Office has not taken a more active role in this investigation, particularly with the media. I would think in a high-profile case, you would want to get out in front of it, but I could be wrong because we kind of all saw how that backfired for the District Attorney's Office in the Karen Reed case. So just excited to hear your thoughts. Also excited for CrimeCon, and my husband, Mr. Sneemac, is tagging along, although he's not quite as juiced as I am, but I'm working on it. All right, take care.
Oh boy, I look forward to meeting him. Don't worry, we will have him fully outfitted and juiced by the end of CrimeCon. I'm so glad that we will be able to see you and say hello to him as well. And right on cue, talking about the smartest community on YouTube. This is a very smart, great question. I just love that you all are talking about stuff like this, and I would love to see you at some cocktail or dinner party bringing up the idea of vertical prosecutions and how those are different, and see everybody's eyes glaze over. But great question, Sneemac from Alexandria, Virginia. So in certain DA's offices, they handle the way that they prosecute cases as far as moving them through the system differently. In Los Angeles, it's such a huge county that they do most of them, the vast majority of the cases, on kind of this conveyor belt sort of system. Like one DA will handle the arraignment, then they hand that off to the DA who handles the prelim, then they hand that off to the DA who handles the pretrial, then they hand that off to the DA who handles the trial, because it just moves things along the line simpler. But in other jurisdictions and in LA, in certain cases, they will handle it what's called a vertical prosecution, meaning one DA is assigned from the get-go. And sometimes before charges are even brought, a DA will be involved in the investigation, the arrest, the filing of charges, the arraignment, the prelim, the pretrial, the trial. They're living this case from the very beginning. Matt Murphy, Orange County, did a lot of those. I've done a few of those, not as much because LA just wasn't didn't operate that way as much. Well, apparently Pima County does operate that way. So SNEMAC is wondering, why haven't we heard more from the DA's office? Kind of a good question. I think part of that is they probably were savvy enough to realize early on what a mess this was becoming from a PR perspective. The sheriff, Nanos, got out there early and often and kind of made a little bit of a fool of himself. Then he had to back off. And then at that point, it was just kind of like nobody wanted to get in front of a camera on this case. And they were like, this guy owns it. This guy right here, Mr. Big Mouth, it's his case now. And I don't think anybody wanted to step in front of a camera and start answering questions after the mess that he had made of it initially. But that doesn't mean that they weren't involved. And in fact, you may remember this was only about a week or two in. This got a lot of coverage that there were attorneys present at the crime scene. There was video of them, these people in suits. I love how prosecutors, even when they're going to a crime scene, won't put on, civilian clothing. They're still showing up in their suits like they're about to walk into a courtroom right afterwards. They were out at the crime scene. My understanding was this was actually folks from the U.S. Attorney's Office. So that's when kind of at the time this was all being reported, we all thought, oh, maybe it's a Fed case. Oh, if the U.S. attorneys are out there, an indictment's coming soon. Obviously, it did not. It got us all kind of a little excited about it. But yeah, this is what you will see in a vertical prosecution where they will be involved. I've been out to crime scenes. DAs, I think, prosecutors should be more involved on the boots kind of situations in these cases. But this case is tragically, going nowhere. And I keep on waiting for the day that we get breaking news on this, but it is sadly becoming one of those cases that I feel like, the next thing we're going to be discussing is the 1-year anniversary of her disappearance. I pray that's not true, but that's what it's looking like. And again, if you have any information, here's where you can call. There's money on the line and it's completely anonymous. So thank you so much, SNEMAC, for asking the question. Oh boy. Jules, thank you so much for gifting the membership. Appreciate you. Highly appreciative of all the gifted memberships. Thank you guys. Beth Solwell, happy crewversary, says, happy Sunday fun day, CC family. Sorry I'm late. We forgive you for that. You get one tardy slip a month. Tumwater Troy, happy crewversary, says, came from Recovery Addict and love your channel. Oh, thank you. We love Recovery Addict and we're glad to have you. We're down to the last 3, everybody. Brace yourselves. The end is coming. Who's going to bring us home? All right. 3 more to go.
Sup, y'all? Court Dog Daniel. Josh, what's it like to work a big trial? All the preparation, the pressure, having to be on your game every single day. And what does that moment actually feel like when it's over? It seems like it would be similar to an athlete coming off a big game, that mix of adrenaline, exhaustion, and maybe even a little bit of a crash. And I imagine that's when the real conversations happen. The post-trial breakdowns, what worked, what didn't work, and the decision that you take back if you could. So give us a war story in that vein. And as a bonus, Tiff, can you do a forensic download of Josh's phone and show us a young Josh Ritter as a budding prosecutor? Much obliged. 40 days till CrimeCon. Juice!
40 days till CrimeCon. CDD from New Britain, Connecticut. Thank you so much. One of my dudes. Great to hear from you, my friend. The warrant that Tiffany tried to get for the forensic download was denied. So she ran into a brick wall on that one. Let me first talk about working on big trials. Probably the biggest trial I ever worked on was very early on in my career, and that was the Phil Spector prosecution. There he is. This was one of those cases where we brought in jurors and they were like, I don't know who that guy is. I think I kind of recognize him because you remember he used to have like outrageous wigs he would wear. and I remember specifically one guy was like, I think I recognize his hair, but I have no idea who he is. Here was a case that was all over court TV, all over national news coverage, just the biggest case in the country. It was seen as being like the next big O.J. Simpson case. Here it is in Los Angeles, and it's involving this huge record producer and horrible, and it's murder and blah, 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 blah. And there were people who were like, I don't know. I don't know who this guy is. I just got answered my jury duty, and all of a sudden here I am. But it was I mean, it was an incredible experience. It's just everything is turned up to 11, right? Everything is hyper scrutinized. Everything is hyper important. All the resources, we had a team of law clerks and attorneys working on this. Alan Jackson, and a man by the name of Pat Dixon were the lead prosecutors on the first trial. You remember this was tried again. It was hung the first time. The second time around, it was Alan Jackson again and a very incredible prosecutor by the name of Truck Doe, who prosecuted him the second time where they got the conviction. But it wasn't just those two. There was maybe another 6 attorneys assigned to doing everything behind the scenes, myself included, plus a team of law clerks behind all of that. So you have all of these resources, the entire office concerned with it. You're thinking about it 24/7. We're putting in 60-hour weeks working on this thing. Then there's the added pressure of everything's on TV. And it was just, it is, I think your analogy, CDD, about it being almost like a sporting event is kind of true, but it's a sporting event. It's like the Super Bowl that takes place over 3 months. And then when it's all done and I will forever remember that moment when we get the phone call. We're like, they have a verdict. We're all rushing back to court. And then you hear them say guilty. And it's just this moment of a wave of relief and elation falls over you. I've said this before. There is nothing like the tension of sitting in court. I don't care how many times you've done it, and I've done it dozens and dozens of times, sitting in court waiting for those jurors to say what the verdict is, for that courtroom clerk to read out the verdict slip. And you're sitting there. There's nothing that can replace it and nothing that can really explain it, not even watching it on TV. And you know how tense it is to watch it on TV. All right. We did find some pictures, Court Dog Daniel. This is way in the recesses of my phone. This was from, I couldn't find many, but this was from a trial that I did as a very young prosecutor back when I was apparently buzzing my hair in this awful haircut. For a trial that was televised here in Los Angeles. So here's some screen captures that I had saved on my phone of that. And that's me pointing my finger and screaming at jurors in court that they better find this guy guilty. So yes, I did do this way back in the day. Still gray haired though, by the way. Not nearly as gray as I am now, but 2.0 is better. Thank you, Bice. I appreciate that. Oh, Lee in Tennessee. That's very kind of you. Those were the fun days. Those were good old fun days. Not a lot to worry about, but kind of chewing gum and kicking ass. So thank you, CDD, for the walk down memory lane. That's Linda Kenny Bonnet behind Spectre. That is Linda Kenny Bonnet, by the way. Yeah, if you want to go back to that picture. She was his attorney. She's also got a YouTube channel now. She was his attorney for the first trial, not the one this is the one that hung. On the second trial, he hired a different attorney. But yeah, that's Linda Kenny Bodden. So yeah, these names, Linda Kenny Bodden, Alan Jackson, goes way back. Judge Fiddler was the judge who handled it. He was on, I know you guys know him. Some of you do. What was he on recently? Very good judge. Very, very good judge. Somebody will tell me. Sorry, I missed that paid thank you there. Thank you so much, Wendy Joan, for gifting the memberships. Appreciate you, Wendy. Thank you so much to Pigeon Nest Tunes. Oh no, Pigeon Nest Tunes. Appreciate you for happy crewversary. She says, meet up at the Dodgers game. I'm down for that. You have no complaints out of me for that. 800 likes. Fantastic. Are we gifting memberships? What's the plan here? Yes, Tiffany's working on it. All right. What do I got? That's it. That's all I got for you. Next, onward. Keep it rolling, Ritter. Oops. See how the wheels start to come off right to the end? Here we go.
Good morning, Josh. This is Carolyn from Logan, Utah. And I have got a couple questions this morning. The first question, as I was watching your report from Provo, I wondered if you had a chance or if you realized going on in the same courtroom as the Tyler Robinson hearings was the Tracy Grist trial. And I wondered if you were aware of that and if you had a chance to stop over and spend a few minutes in that trial. I've been watching that one, and it's been heartbreaking. The calls between Katie and Matt, the victim, have been heartbreaking, listening to her lure Matt to Utah. And in the background, you can hear the children. And that's just been so hard to listen to. But I've been following that. Just wondered if you were aware that it was in the same courthouse. But also, I have been wanting to ask, what makes an attorney death penalty qualified? That's been on my mind. So wondered if you could answer that too. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Carolyn from Logan, Utah. Let's put Logan on the map. Thank you so much for calling in. I was not aware, which I should have been aware, that Tracy Grist was in the same courthouse as Tyler Robinson in Provo, Utah. We have not been streaming that one. You know, it's so much going on, and we try to put attention into some cases. This is the case, horrible case. The murdered son-in-law, the wife was in on it. The brother already got convicted. Just one of those awful things. They lure him back to the house and then murder him and try to stage it. Horrible stuff. And we continue to try to update all of you, but we haven't been streaming it. We haven't been, covering as much as some of you, I imagine, should wanted. And I don't know what to tell you. There's so much going on. We're trying to do as best we can. But it is a fascinating case. And especially because the wife is the kind of the center of this whole thing. And she's the one that took a deal. And now she's flipped on her family and she's putting her mother and her brother in prison for the rest of their lives. And so, again, another case where children will live without their parents. But to your question, Carolyn, about attorneys being death penalty qualified. You'll hear this term come up. It came up with the Tyler Robinson case because they needed to assign him an attorney in Utah, appoint him an attorney who was death penalty qualified. And Kathy Nestor is. And she's appointed. He has not hired her, and she's not in a public defender's office. She's a private attorney, but is being paid on the county dime as an appointed attorney because she's one of the few death penalty qualified attorneys in that area to take these types of cases. So what does that mean? Well, first, it's an appointed attorney, right? Someone that is either in the public defender's office or appointed by the court in some sort of, program that they have for attorneys like that to pick up cases from the court and be paid by the state. The answer, though, as to how you become qualified to handle these cases is different per jurisdiction and per state. Here in Los Angeles, you have to show a certain amount of experience before they're going to give you even less serious than death penalty cases, even murder cases, you have to be a certain level of experience. There's kind of different levels that you work your way up to. But they're looking for experience in years. How long have you been doing it? They've also looking for experience in kind. Have you handled a bunch of murder cases before? Or are you just a lawyer who's been doing this a long time, but all you've ever handled are DUIs? So they're looking for experience in years, experience in kind, any kind of training that they may require. All of that, though, I make the point of saying, is for appointed attorneys that are going to be hired by the state, paid by the state to represent this person. Well, what if that defendant doesn't want an appointed attorney, but wants to hire their own attorney, a private attorney? Does that attorney have to be death penalty, quote unquote, qualified? No. You can hire whoever you want, as long as they are a card-carrying member of that state bar. You can hire whoever you like. Isn't that interesting? You could hire somebody fresh out of law school, somebody who spent their entire career doing probate law, doing contracts, and all of a sudden they're representing you on a death penalty case. Nothing constitutionally preventing any of that. A lawyer is a lawyer. And I'll tell you, as a lawyer, that ain't true, but that's how the law views it. I mean, it's like, I say this all the time, especially when you start hearing some people, in the media, on the internet, talking about things like criminal cases, and you find out that they've spent their entire career as in some big civil law firm or something like that. You don't ask a podiatrist about your heart palpitations. Yeah, they're both MDs, but I mean, there is some specialization that takes place here. I would never feel qualified, even though I'm allowed to feel qualified to walk somebody through their divorce proceedings or to help them work out the execution of a will. Just not qualified to do that. Nothing in the law prevents me from it. And I'm certainly not going to start pontificating about it, for the news media. I get calls sometimes. They're like, hey, can you talk about this? And I'm like, that's not in my wheelhouse. I just don't know. I'd be faking it. So I don't know how I got on that whole tangent. But the point is, no matter who you are, if you got a valid bar card, you can handle a case, you can be hired by somebody. But if you're going to be appointed by the state, you have to be, quote unquote, death penalty qualified. All right. Great question. Carolyn from Logan, Utah. Dr. Barry did a recap of Tracy Grist, connections in the family, etc. yesterday. It was great. I recommend watching, says Nebraska Panhandler. So we will recommend that to you as well. Yes. Ad-free live shows. That is something we're very proud of. We have dedicated ourselves to, if we're live and we're doing a live stream and you're watching it live, then we are not going to allow YouTube to interrupt us. And that's why we are so appreciative of all the support that you guys give us through the, super chats and membership contributions and all that. Member for 9 months, Nightbot, who hurt you? Who hurt you? We're all 100% juice. Is Nightbot got a little bit of an attitude today? Is that what's going on? Is that what I'm hearing? Nightbot being a little sassy with everyone? Maybe we better sit. Kaylin, should we sit Nightbot down for a conversation? She says yes. All right. Get out the hankies, everybody. It's that time. It is the last question of the day. Who's bringing us home today? And of course, with that huge dramatic buildup, we get a mechanical malfunction here. Here we go.
Josh, this is Jerry Michael in Newport News, Virginia. Did you know that you were called out on the Robinson trial today, April 17th? In fact, they had one of your podcasts on. I don't know if they were trying to do a change of venue or they were complaining about the media coverage of his case. but you were specifically called out. I just wondered if you was aware of that. You may want to go and take a listen to that hearing today.
Jerry from Newport News, Virginia. I know the audio was a little low on that, but I will tell you all what Jerry said. Jerry, first of all, thank you so much for calling in, putting Newport News on the map. Appreciate you. I don't think it was an issue with Jerry. I think there's just an issue with the recording. But Jerry asks, there she is. Yell for us next time, Jerry. Jerry asks, did you know that they played your news coverage during the Tyler Robinson hearing? So Friday, 2 days ago, they all blend together. I was in Provo, Utah for the Tyler Robinson hearing, and I was out there doing some news coverage. And while the hearing was actually going on, many of us who were not able to go inside of the courtroom were watching the proceedings on the computer in a lobby of a hotel that's across the street. And we're all kind of working on different things. And we're all kind of monitoring the proceedings as well. And they get to this part that I mentioned earlier where that Dr. Edelman is listening. It was such a bizarre moment. They're playing these video clips, and like they would play a hit from NBC, and you would hear somebody from NBC say, Tyler Robinson, blah, 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 blah. And then they would turn to this guy and go, tell us about that. Was that fair? And he goes, no, that's not fair. That was really outrageous, and that was really sensational. And that, and how does that affect the community? Well, it affects the community because everybody's going to believe that this guy's guilty now, and there's no fair way. And I don't want to revisit my issue with all of this, but it's a little ridiculous if you think about it. One, we need an expert to tell us how people are going to react to news. That is something that we're all unqualified to understand. Oh, I had no idea that if the news guy says Tyler Robinson's a bad dude, some people might think he's a bad dude. I mean, it's so bizarre. And then, the way that you find out how people are receiving this is you ask people. And we have a thing called voir dire that does exactly that. Bizarre. And then, okay, I know I said I wouldn't do it, but I can't help myself. They're asking for the cameras to be gone. That doesn't solve the problem. You know what I mean? Even if you review the cameras, people are going to still say things about Tyler Robinson. You can't cut that off because you would have to stop the Constitution. So the whole thing seemed like a bizarre exercise to me. But we're all sitting there watching. I'm typing away. I'm actually on the phone with Tiffany. And somebody goes, oh my God, Josh, it's you. And I go, Tiff, I got to hang up. And I run over to the computer, and this is what I heard.
I want to ask you how Fox News covered it, and with one of their talking
just
heads
add
here.
to our comments about his demeanor in court earlier. We talked a little bit about don't try to understand the mind of a monster. Well, we do know a little bit about the mind of this monster, in that I believe he's incredibly proud of his handiwork. It makes us think a lot about Luigi Mangione. These two men inscribed notes on the bullet casings that they used to commit murders, murders that were to send a message. He committed an assassination in a very public place against a person that he had ideological differences with, entirely politically motivated. That is a person who's proud of their handiwork. So I think that when we see him loose and calm, relaxed, and smiling in court, I think that's an outer manifestation of his inner feelings, that he is very proud of what he's done, stands by what he's done, has no remorse for what he's done, and is looking forward to the world watching.
Jonathan, I see you nodding in agreement.
Really troubling. Understanding the first commentator, the first talking head there is an ex-prosecutor, right? And is he sounding like a prosecutor talking about the mind of a monster?
I mean, to me, it's more sensationalism. First of all, again, negative character evidence is some of the most prejudicial pretrial publicity that you can have, emotional negative character evidence, particularly in death penalty case. And you're hearing mind of a monster, he's a trophy. I mean, he's smiling. What is the basis of any of this? There's nothing from that hearing or anything that is relevant here. Like, this is just pure speculation and sensationalism.
Now, the
How dare you, sir? First of all, the guy calls me a talking head. The least you could do is say a talking head who's also got the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube, Courtroom Confidential, which he did not do. It was just kind of a funny moment. Sensationalism. And again, it kind of drives home my point. Like, yeah, I am. That is what I do. Is editorializing, right? It's commenting on things that are not exactly reporting as fact, right? What do you think? I mean, what they didn't play you there was the lead up to my answer, which is, what do you make of him smiling in court? I mean, we're talking about this like you might talk about like a sports coverage or something. It's not meant to be evidence. Anyhow, that was the moment. Thank you for bringing that up, Jerry, from Newport News. It was kind of funny. Afterwards, we were all kind of laughing about it, and I felt like I had really made it. And then somebody was like, we've got good attorneys at Fox. I'm like, I'm not getting in trouble for this thing. I'm like the editorial guy. Anyhow, thank you for that, Jerry from Newport News, for closing us out today. All right, don't go anywhere. I'm watching you guys. Don't you hit any buttons. I got a few more things to tell you before I let you go. First of all, let me tell you about our website, thecourtroomconfidential.com. Really briefly, you'll find 3 very important things there. First of all, if you've listened to all the messages today and you thought to yourself, those were all great, but I've got a question, well, go to thecourtroomconfidential.com and click on leave us a message, and you can ask a question for next week. 2, membership. Thank you so much to everybody who gifted a membership today. We appreciate you, and we love having you part of our membership program. We put a lot of work into it. If you missed out and you still want to be part of the membership program, though, click on Become a Member, and you can find about all the benefits of being part of the CC crew. And merch, if you are looking for, like Britzy did. Britzy just did it, everybody. Do it like Britzy. Beautiful dog there. Also, BHD October 10/12 just became a YouTube member. Be like BHD. And if you like Josh's shirt, you can find the CC merch here at the shop. So we've got t-shirts. We've got every color that your heart can desire. We've got hoodies. We've got zip-up hoodies. We've got pullover hoodies. We've got quarter zips. Love these things, these quarter zips. We've got notebooks, we've got mugs, we've got tumblers, we've got pajama pants, we've got what else? What am I missing? Fun sweaters, t-shirts, and more coming. We've got you covered. Go to the shop at thecourtroomconfidential.com. What did you miss this week? Well, we had the weekly roundup yesterday. We moved it to Saturday for one day to accommodate for some travel I was doing. We talked about David. We talked about Tyler Robinson, and we also introduced a brand new feature of the weekly roundup, which we're going to try to do every week now, which is our Hero of the Week. So every Wednesday, we're going to open up the opportunity on the membership tab to submit a candidate. And then every Friday, we're going to highlight somebody new. So we did it for the first time. Check it out. It's up on the channel now. Something we thought would be a nice kind of positive contribution to the true crime community. And then on Friday, we had the weekly rap sheet where I was live from Provo talking about the Tyler Robinson case, along with some other case and my co-hosts, Donna Rotuno and Paul Morrow on Fox Nation. Then stay tuned for next week. On Monday, we will have, that's tomorrow night. God, everything's moving so quickly. Tomorrow night, we're working on something. I can't officially announce anything, but we're working on something to try to make this a special episode for you. So with that being said, we're going to be likely talking about David. He's going to be in court for his arraignment tomorrow. We will be going live at either 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 7 or 8 Eastern. Stay tuned. Once I have the details, I will let you all know. And then on Wednesday, back at our normal time, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday Night Live. Special guest will be Matt Murphy. Okay, CrimeCon is coming up in Vegas, May 29th through the 31st. You can get your discount code of 10% off. We would love to have you there. And I know that some of you can't make it. And I know even with the 10% off, some of you can't make it. But we don't want you to feel left out. So we are planning on doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff and videos that we're going to post for all of you if you can't make the travel. But if you can, or if you just want to feel like you are, we also have a shirt that we co-branded along with CrimeCon that is available to all of our members. So check that out. And we decided to do it in white as well because somebody came up with the brilliant idea. Wouldn't it be nice to have people sign it to memorialize the time that you went to CrimeCon? So that's all available on the membership tab. And I understand that there's been a little bit of issue with, what is it, like the correct sizing, or a couple of folks have had some issues. And so we wanted to make sure that if you do, please reach out to us at info@viafortunamedia.com. All right. Finally, in regards to CrimeCon, I am not sure. Did we ever figure this out, Tiff, when the voting on this ends? There are two things that Courtroom Confidential is up for a potential award at CrimeCon. As you know, or may not know, CrimeCon also has an award show called the Clue Awards. We were actually nominated last year, didn't win, tears. And we hope to get nominated again this year. And so I'm just unabashedly asking for your support. There are two categories. One is Outstanding Episodic Series, and the other is Creator of the Year. And so if you are going and you have the opportunity to vote, please vote for us. Courtroom Confidential, Outstanding Episodic Series, Creator of the Year. Appreciate you guys. All right. I think that's everything. I think I covered it all. Did I miss anything, ladies? Oh, maybe somebody who has the actual email knows the deadline. Oh, there you go. Voting deadline is April 26th. So you got a few more days. Thank you for that, Julia Miller. There you go. I voted for CC. Thank you, Court Dog Daniel. Appreciate you. All right, guys. Thank you, Afton. That's very sweet. And that's what really matters. Oh, the 23rd. Oh, hurry up, everybody. Don't miss out. All right. Thank you, Sneemac. Appreciate you. Big shout out and thank you to the Best Mod Squad on the YouTubes, to Afton, Sonia, Kathy, Therapist, and Nancy. Appreciate everything that you guys do. Carolyn Keel, thank you. Very interesting. She's been a member for 8 months. Happy crewversary. And Kaylin, I don't know what to say, Kaylin. I feel like I try to one-up at every single week, and I'm running out of words. But thank you for everything you do and for making this run so smoothly. We greatly appreciate you. And Tiffany, you are, as always, the best thing to ever happen to me. We'll see you all here tomorrow night. Take care, everybody.